It's Chelsea Coffey here with the Coffee Break. This is actually my very first coffee break chat from my new apartment, which is crazy because I've already been here for 6 months. I don't know where the time went. But today's coffee break chat is extra special because it is highlighting kind of like a reflection of the last year of my life. I just turned 31, so I definitely have a little bit of time up under me now, and hopefully I'm getting wiser and not just older. So I wanted to share a couple of things that really stood out to me over the course of the last year. It was not the easiest year by any means. 2017 as a whole was just a tough one. But the cool thing about it is for every difficult experience that you have, best case scenario, you actually learn a lot from it. And I definitely can say that I have. But for me specifically and personally, there were some lessons that were learned that definitely would probably be beneficial for other people to hear as well. I always think that the more you share, the better, just because it's putting more good back into the atmosphere. So anyway, the very first takeaway I have for 30 is to always speak up. I can't say this enough. Like, even if you think it's too late, even if you think that you missed your opportunity, like, always speak up, because a lot of times the thing that we actually want, we're suppressing because we don't want to complain, or we feel like maybe we're asking for too much, and essentially we end up settling for something that could have been resolved if we had just said, in the nicest way possible, this is what I actually want, this is what I'm believing for, this is what, I feel like I'm here for, and stand by it. Or it could be even for something small, just standing up for yourself, or just something that you really want, or something that you really think that, like, you can earn. The second thing, and this really is kind of like the cornerstone of, like, last year for me, is that, like, some days will suck. Like, there will be actual really, really difficult times. I've always said that, like, I look back and I'm like, gosh, I know there was a time when, like, things went, like, more smoothly. Maybe this is just part of getting older. I don't know what it is, but there are going to be days that come that just blow you away. And my takeaway from that is how important it is to bounce back, regardless of what happened, regardless of if it seems like everything is falling apart. The ability to bounce back and say, no, I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to take control of how I'm responding to this, how I react to this. Sometimes it's too much for us and we just have to take it for what it is in that moment. But then from there, what do we do with it? Are we finding a win in the scenario? Are we looking for sunshine? Are we finding a way to bounce back and move forward? Or, just letting ourselves stay in that place. Don't stay in the place. Don't get trapped. The next thing is don't panic. This is something that, like, has really, really been a huge learning curve for me, and really the last year and a half. There are so many different scenarios that we can get put in that just make us like, what am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? What is going to happen? Like, what if it doesn't happen? All these things. And at some point, you have to look back and say, well, for starters, I'm still here. Next, I'm looking around, everything's okay. Like, it may not be perfect, but the fact that you're still here stands for something. And more importantly, at least in my experience, God has continuously blown me away in terms of creating an opportunity, the opportunity blowing my mind, it being more than I could have even wanted or expected. All those things are really significant when it comes to understanding why it's so important to have faith, even when it seems like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to get through this? What am I going to do? The next thing, and this is like one of the biggest learning curves that I've had being here in New York, your home is your sanctuary. It really, really is. Like, everything from, like, the way you design it, to the plants that you have, like my baby's in the back, to, the different pieces that you bring from maybe like your parents' house, or putting elements of your loved one in a space. All those things mentally and emotionally, like, play such a significant role, especially because I live on the East Coast now, and even though the sun is bright and shiny and it's beautiful outside, like, we definitely have our share of gray days up here. So all those different things just play into the overall psyche of having this, like, place that you can go to. It's a refuge for you. That's so important. So for me, in my apartment, ironically, I love it for the most part, but I just haven't been here very long, so it still is missing kind of like those different elements that I think would really build it out to feeling like, oh, this is my home sweet home. Like, I get glimpses of it, but my whole point is if you're not crazy about the space that you're in and you feel like there are like things you need to do, just do it. Like if it's adding a throw to your couch, get it. If it's buying more plants, do that. If it's changing your bedding, whatever it takes, like we are so taxed emotionally and mentally. It's really important to have a place where you can just go and escape from it all. Oh, the next thing, love. I am like super sappy and I am like all in when it comes to this, but it really is the best thing. Like falling in love, being in love, having someone love you. Like I think sometimes like if you've been hurt or if you're questioning like, do I even want to try again or all those different things, like maybe I'm being dramatic for saying this, but I just encourage you to give it another chance. Like having somebody to do life with you is the best feeling in the world. Uh, Something I had to learn though about that is that there is more to it than just kind of like the feel good things, right? And I say that because there are going to be times where the people who love you are really going to like step up and do things that you wish you could have done for yourself. And it doesn't make you weak and it doesn't make you less independent to be able to receive those things. I think that being able to receive love is something that is really, really important. And I think it's also something that for people who do strive to be independent and to make it on their own and figure things out, it does almost feel like you're giving that up a little bit to let somebody help you. Forget that, let somebody help you. If there are things that they can do, opportunities that they can create, willingly take it, show gratitude, and look for an opportunity when you can do the same. The next thing, be intentional, be specific, and never settle for anything less than vision. At any point in this year, that has been something that I saw firsthand. Even if I knew I was settling, or even if I knew that I kind of like wasn't fighting for what I wanted, I would still, in certain cases, like let it go on too long. And as I came into the kind of like final hour of my 30th year, and thank God, like my birthday really like was amazing. So I finished out 30 like with a bang. I realized that like for the experiences that were most significant for me in the last year and for the experiences that um, really, really stand out to me, it's because there was a standard. There was an actual vision that I had for my life in terms of what I wanted it to look like, how I wanted it to feel, what I wanted to see. All these different things played into the specificity that I had from the get-go. So I say that to say, if there are areas where you're cloudy or it's like you're trying to figure it out, get it on paper, be intentional, set, goals for yourself and say, no, this is what it looks like. This is what I'm here to do. This is how I want it to look while I'm doing it. And just trust that like that gut feeling that you have about it is the real deal. Because settling is not an option moving forward. At least I'd like to think it isn't. The next thing, I learned that vision is different than a want or a desire. I really think that vision is a gift from God, and I also think that more importantly, it's something that you either honor or you don't. It's just that basic. It's not a want. It's not something that you're like, oh, I wish I could have. It's like it's something that comes with conviction. So I also feel like and I guess the way I like to describe it is that it's the mental picture of your vision and your calling. Like whatever it is, like that's your purpose here, like that's your vision, like it's what you see. So I say that to say, and this is something that I really had to learn kind of like the hard way in the last year. If you have already identified your calling and your purpose, you can try to run from it, you can try to hide from it, you can do whatever you want, but you will look up, and after all that running and after all those like detours and trying to like, work your way out of it or work your way away from it, you will look up and it'll still be standing there next to you like, hey, like I'm not going anywhere, so you can keep running, but I'm still here. And that has been every bit of my experience in a number of different areas. But yeah, like it's just one of those things. You can run and you can run and you can run, but if it's meant for you, it will not go away. The next thing, comparison, and I want to be very intentional about this part. I think that we have a mindset that's like, oh, well, I'm not comparing, I'm using this person as a benchmark, or I want to set my goals to reflect somebody who's successful. And I think that all those things are very good. I do think that there is a fine line between setting that benchmark and actually like comparing like your validity to that person, or how well qualified you are, or just your sheer ability to be able to execute what it is that you're seeing done by another person. And the reason why I want to be so intentional about pointing this part out is because in the depths of my heart, I genuinely believe that every person who is here to fulfill a specific purpose, right? So if that's the case, it means that whatever it is that so and so is doing, or this person or the next person, fantastic, cheer them on, be happy for them. But at the end of the day, what it is that you're called here to do is something that only you can fulfill. So it doesn't matter if you package it just like the next person or another person, it's never going to look like them, because it's something that is actually supposed to be a reflection of you and your greatness and the things that you bring to the table. So I say this all the time, it's a rabbit hole. Don't jump into it. Don't let your mind wander too far, checking out this person or that person. Like, just like stay focused on what it is that you enjoy doing. Find the things that like you're freaking good at and commit to that. It's going to make a huge difference, trust me. Take calculated risk. I took a lot of risk in the last year and a half, almost like to a fault maybe. But I really moved here to push myself to do things that I didn't do in Houston. I wanted to challenge myself to have to make it happen in a way that I hadn't before. And praise God, like it's worked out for me for the most part. And I'm just really thankful for that. I say calculated risk because some people are really big champions of being a risk taker. Like that's cool, but at the end of the day, like I think you need to use some wisdom when you're taking risks. I'm not all for blindly jumping into this thing or that thing. I think you should always use a combination of praying first and also just like trusting your gut on timing. I think those things are huge when it comes to risk taking. Next, deadlines are your second best friend. I cannot say this enough. I will be very transparent. I started off the year doing bullet journaling, and I was traveling at the end of January. And bullet journaling by design is supposed to be the setup where it's like you set up the 1 month and then you set up the next month. But what I realized is that like I need to set up like the whole year, because if I get busy, like now we're in mid-February, like I have pieces of that next month, but the first month was like super organized, super successful. So I say that to say like don't take for granted having deadlines. Like if you set those deadlines for yourself of when you need to do it, it puts you into like survival mode in your mind. Like, oh crap, like I know that tomorrow like I'm supposed to have this or I'm supposed to have that. It made a huge difference for that first part of the year for me. And I'm excited to get back on it to really execute it for the rest of the year, because I think it's going to make a big difference. The next thing, and this is one of my favorite lines from one of my meditations: you're the younger version of the person you dream of being. And I love that line. Like, I love it, love it, love it. I think sometimes we have this idea that it's like, how are we going to get here? Like, that we're just going to wake up one day and we'll be like, oh my gosh, like, it happened. And I think, like, for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, that sometimes there is this, like, an ability to realize that, like, everything that you have in you now and everything that you're working towards, like, they're all deposits that go into who you're going to be in the future. So you already have all those things in you, you just need to execute them. Execution is everything. So when you think about, gosh, like one day I hope to have this or I hope to have that, all those things, if you're praying and working towards it and like fighting for it, like you're just not there yet. But it doesn't mean that you don't already have it within you. Next thing, pray first before everything. I can honestly say that, like, I don't know if anybody remembers, back in 2015, I had this, like, vision for my life. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to go to New York for Fashion Week. I was going to meet some people. Somebody was going to give me a job. I was going to move to New York, and that was just going to be my story. And it was a year and a half later before I even really thought, like, okay, I can do New York. I went to New York. I didn't meet anyone who gave me a job. I met people, but they weren't looking to hire. And there was like a plan that I didn't have to even position myself to do that. And all those different things like messed me up. I was like, gosh, like what happened? And then I looked back and I realized, like, Chelsea, you did not pray first. Like, you did not ask God, like, is this your timing for me? Or like, is New York the move right now? Or like, is later better? Like, I was just like, oh, if you have a dream, you have a plan, you need to jump in there, you need to go get it. No, sometimes you need to wait and you need to see when the time is right. So I say pray for everything, whether it's a job, a relationship, if you're supposed to move, when you're supposed to move, whatever it is that you're believing for, how you're going to build your business, all those things, pray first. There are things that like God is going to see for you that you can't see for yourself, and having him there as a counterpart to go through the whole journey with you is just that much better. It is the best cosign you could ever get. Last but not least, and this is something I say all the time, but it means so much to me. Celebrate the wins, big and small. I know I probably drive my family and friends crazy with this, but like, I celebrate little stuff. Like, it could be like, oh my gosh, a parking space was made available, or like, I caught the train in time, or like, whatever it is, like, all those different things. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Like, and I find that like the more I do that, it's just a morale booster. Like, if the standard is set so high in terms of what it takes to make you happy, that means you're starting off every day like with the possibility of being happy. Like, celebrate the little things. It creates good feedback for good vibes. Next thing you know, you're celebrating like big stuff too, and it's just all part of the pie. So I really, really, really push that. I think that in terms of morale, it's super important to be able to identify like a certain element of gratitude, and that's definitely something that I am committed to practicing this year. It'll reduce complaining and feeling disappointed and doubt. It's just really marinate in all the good things that have happened, so that there's always the ability to say thank you. I appreciate what's happening. I see what's happening, and I trust what's going to happen in the future. So anyway, those are my takeaways. I think that like my kind of cornerstone for the last few years has just been enjoy the ride. Like, there are so many different things that are going to come up and that are going to happen. Some of them are going to be beautiful and amazing, and some of them are going to be really freaking hard. And I think the ability to say like it's all part of the journey and embrace that and be okay with that is really what makes the difference in terms of quality of life. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope that this was helpful, and stay tuned for the next coffee break chat. Oh, and subscribe. Take care.